Coming up on Arirang News. As torrential downpours hit the greater capital region this Wednesday morning, South Korea's weather agency issued the very first heavy rain alerts for the area this year. The rain led to hundreds of damage reports, widespread traffic disruption, and even evacuations. Amid monsoon season on the peninsula, Seoul's defense ministry has warned of North Korean mines near the border, possibly flowing into the south, after being swept up by rainwater or rivers. Global financial institutions, the IMF and ADB, have raised their growth projections for South Korea this year to 2.5% on the back of robust exports. Welcome to the 9 p.m. edition of Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. With the Korean Peninsula going through monsoon season, this morning areas in the greater capital region as well as in the south experienced damage from torrential rain or flooding. An Sung-jin reports.
This road in Paju is blocked off with a giant puddle in the middle. Cars tried to make it through by driving slowly. Northern areas of Gyeonggi-do province in particular, including Paju, were hit with torrential downpours on Wednesday morning. As heavy rain continued throughout the morning, people on their way to work were met with difficulties and many areas saw damage due to flooding. Subway trains were delayed and major roads were closed off.
It is very difficult to tell why at this moment that we are having such heavy rains. We need some more thorough analysis. But because of so much humidity due to the global warming, that could, drive this very, very heavy downpours.
For the first time this year, the Korea Meteorological Administration on Wednesday sent out emergency alert messages due to the heavy rain warnings in the Seoul metropolitan area. 20 alert messages were sent out around the capital and northern Gyeonggi-do province. The warnings were later lifted except for the northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province. More than 300 cases of heavy rain-related damage were reported on Wednesday, and in Jeollanam-do province, which has already experienced heavy rain this summer, there are more than 200 cases of house and rice field flooding as well as road damage. In addition, more than 500 people have been forced to evacuate due to the risk of flooding and landslides. A dam located along the Bukhangang River opened its floodgates for the first time this year to control the water levels.
The amount of the water that comes down within very short time is very much. So that means it can lead to flash flood. Even it's not hard this time when you try to go out, you shouldn't go. You shouldn't take those things particularly in these seasons.
There was a brief lull on Wednesday afternoon, but rain is expected to continue till early Thursday morning. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And heavy rain is causing concerns near the inter-Korean border area as South Korea's military warns that North Korean landmines could get swept up by rainwater and flow into the south, posing a possible threat to people in the country. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
Earlier this week, North Korea hinted that it could adopt a new tactic besides sending trash balloons to counter the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign. South Korea's defense ministry believes this could involve landmines flowing into the south amid the ongoing downpours across the peninsula. North Korea has been planting mines on its side of the demilitarized zone since April. The defense ministry estimates that tens of thousands have been newly planted since, with some installed near rivers shared by the two Koreas.
There's a possibility that mines could flow down from the north as a new form of provocation, or it could be the heavy rain. It could also release water from its Hwanggang Dam, as has been the case in the past. We must prepare to prevent damage to our soldiers and citizens.
The mines are leaf-shaped or made of wood. The Defense Ministry advises the public to refrain from touching suspected landmines and report them immediately to the police or the ministry if spotted. The government is also bracing for other forms of North Korean provocations, including potential gun and artillery shots. Despite the harsh weather conditions involving heat waves and heavy downpours, North Korea doesn't appear to be halting its construction work near the inter-Korean border. According to the Defense Ministry, North Korean soldiers appear to be working 12 hours a day, with some facing health issues due to mines exploding as well as scorching heat. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
U.S. federal prosecutors have charged a former CIA analyst, Sumi Terry, a pro-Korea scholar who's also an expert on North Korea, of working for the South Korean government in exchange for gifts. It's seen as an unexpected event by pundits. Kim Jung-sil explains.
Federal prosecutors in New York have charged Sumi Terry for failing to register under the U.S. Federal Foreign Agents Registration Act and for conspiring to violate it. The U.S. government requires individuals acting as agents for foreign principals to register and publicly disclose their relationships and activities so that it can evaluate them. The New York prosecutors say Ms. Terry did not register despite engaging in extensive activities for and at the direction of the South Korean government. According to the indictment released on Tuesday, she began operating as a foreign agent in June 2013 when she was first contacted by an intelligence officer posing as a diplomat for the South Korean mission to the UN. It said she accepted designer handbags and expensive meals in exchange for information and lobbying over the next 10 years. The indictment said she also received at least $37,000 in covert payments. Ms. Terry's lawyer released a statement saying that the allegations were unfounded and distorted the work of a scholar and news analyst known for her independence and years of service to the United States. Born in 1972, Ms. Terry moved to the U.S. when she was 12 years old. After getting her PhD in international relations, she worked at the CIA as well as the U.S. National Security Council. Pundits say the indictment comes as a surprise, as for the past decade she was just working as a scholar in the academic field. Analysts also say the indictment could potentially shrivel the development and research of pro-Korea scholars in the U.S., who are significantly lacking in influence and impact compared to pro-Japan scholars. The South Korean National Intelligence Service released a brief comment on Wednesday, saying it's closely communicating with the U.S. intelligence agencies, referring to the indictment. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
China has decided to halt talks with the United States over arms control and non-proliferation, citing Washington's engagement in arms sales with Taiwan. Such remarks came from China's Foreign Ministry's spokesperson Lin Jian during a regular briefing on Wednesday. Lin said that Washington has been taking a series of negative measures undermining Beijing's core interests, despite China's resolute opposition, which led to China suspending the consultations with the U.S. He added that China is willing to maintain communication, but only when Washington respects Beijing's core interests and creates the conditions needed for dialogue and exchange. The two sides agreed on consultations on arms control and non-proliferation during the Biden-Xi summit in San Francisco last November. Shifting gears to the economy, global financial institutions have raised their growth projections for South Korea this year as the country's exports accelerated economic expansion in the first quarter. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin has the details.
The International Monetary Fund has upgraded its growth forecast for South Korea's economy this year to 2.5%. The IMF, which publishes its World Economic Outlook in January, April, July, and October each year, on Tuesday raised its growth outlook 0.2 percentage points from the 2.3% forecast made in April. The projection is the same as the Asian Development Bank's supplementary growth forecast released on Wednesday when it revised upward South Korea's economic outlook to 2.5% from its April report of 2.2%. And it's also the same as the Bank of Korea's forecast, but slightly lower than the anticipated growth set by the OECD, the South Korean government, and the Korea Development Institute of 2.6%. The boost in South Korea's growth forecast by both the IMF and the ADB was mostly due to its faster-than-expected growth in the first quarter of 1.3% on the back of robust exports. Exports in June saw on-year growth for the 9th straight month, with shipments of chips, the nation's largest export item, surging more than 50% compared to the previous year. As for other nations, the IMF lowered its growth forecast for the United States by 0.1% to 2.6% this year as the labor market shows increasing signs of cooling. But the growth outlook for China was hiked to 5% from 4.6% due to a rise in China's exports and a recovery in private consumption in the first quarter. Regarding the global outlook for this year, the IMF kept it steady at 3.2% with a slightly stronger growth of 3.3% for 2025. While this year's projection was kept steady, it remains tepid considering how the global economy expanded 3.8% on average before the pandemic.
Near-term risks have become more prominent. These risks may result in higher for even longer interest rates, which in turn increases external, fiscal, and financial risks. Additionally, significant swings in economic policy around election could lead to fiscal slippages and heightened protectionism.
And near-term risks aside, the IMF said that policymakers need to make it their priority to restore price stability and that strengthening multilateral cooperation is essential to addressing global challenges. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
One of South Korea's largest conglomerates, SK Group, will soon see two of its subsidiaries merge. The decision made on Wednesday will see its energy and chemical company SK Innovation merge with SK E&S, which operates city gas utilities and LNG power generation units. The decision comes as SK Group looks to restructure its businesses and enhance competitiveness in the future energy sector amid the prolonged global economic downturn and increasing uncertainty. This merger, which is set to happen in November at the earliest, will create the largest private energy company in the Asia-Pacific region with an expected asset size of 106 trillion won, or approximately $77 billion. One of the country's biggest economic events is underway on the southern resort island of Jeju, discussing the latest socio-economic issues facing South Korea as well as the government's policy directions going forward. Our Moon Hye-ryan is there and files this report.
With the country facing continued high interest rates, consumer prices and exchange rates as it enters the latter half of the year, the government aims to revitalize the economy into something dynamic. The 47th edition of the Jeju Forum, hosted by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, kicked off on Wednesday, gathering experts, industry insiders and government officials together. During the opening ceremony, SK Group Chairman Cha Tae-won discussed the changing economic landscape with new emerging technologies.
It's impossible to talk about anything without talking about AI. Technology has become specialized with a few dominating the market, and contingency plans are needed for this.
Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok followed up with a speech on the current economic environment amid geopolitical risks in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine, and how they affect South Korea.
From what I understand, national and economic security are one. There's no high-tech economic cooperation between countries without security cooperation.
This comes following President Yoon Suk-yeol's participation in the NATO summit last week, acknowledging the connection between Indo-Pacific and Euro-Atlantic security. Earlier this month, the government unveiled its economic policy plans for the latter half of the year, which showed a focus on vulnerable groups such as small business owners, pledging to spend nearly 25 trillion won or over $18 billion to provide financial support as well as a one-stop platform that provides necessary information.
The current problem that small business owners face isn't something that can be solved by just extending the deadline for debt repayments. It's a structural issue and the burden of high interest rates.
He also reaffirmed the government's plans to revitalize domestic demand and lay down a more positive view of the economy going forward, with a newly revised economic growth projection from 2.2% to 2.6% for 2024. Some 600 business leaders and representatives have gathered here on Jeju Island to discuss 4 central themes relevant to South Korea's industrial landscape today. The 4-day forum is scheduled to run until Saturday. Moon Hye-ryan, Arirang News, Jeju.
Today marks the 76th anniversary of the proclamation of the first Constitution of the Republic of Korea. Our political correspondent Lee Si-woo explains its significance and how its spirit is remembered on this day.
Shortly after the March 1st movement, when Koreans went out on the streets calling for independence and liberation from the Japanese colonial rule, on April 11, 1919, independence activists gathered in Shanghai and established the Provisional Charter of the Republic of Korea. It consisted of 10 articles, of which the first declared South Korea a democratic republic. The rest upheld the values of freedom and equality and promoted the pursuit of absolute independence as a nation. Years later, in 1945, Korea did reclaim its independence. 3 years following this, on July 17, 1948, Korea proclaimed its first constitution based on the principles of sovereignty, freedom, and equality inherited from the Provisional Charter. To celebrate the Constitution, the National Assembly held a special ceremony on Wednesday, July 17th, or Constitution Day.
The first constitution of the Republic of Korea that laid the foundations of the country amid the joy of liberation and the chaos of division still teaches us many lessons. The spirit and values from the first constitution are our assets and a stepping stone for our leap forward.
Since its founding, the Supreme Law has undergone 9 changes or constitutional amendments. Today, it consists of 10 chapters with 103 articles.
The sovereignty of the Republic of Korea shall reside in the people, and all state authority shall emanate from the people. These are the words from the first article of the Constitution, which has upheld the ideals and values of South Korea and its people for 76 years. Despite political, socio-economic, and cultural changes, it has and will continue to define the people's rights to freedom and happiness. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Over in the prolonged medical dispute, training hospitals nationwide have started processing the resignation letters of residents after most of the 13,000 trainee doctors failed to return to work by the government's deadline. On Wednesday, the hospitals announced that they plan to accept the resignation letters submitted almost 5 months ago and finalize the number of vacancies to recruit new junior doctors in September. Some hospitals had already notified them on Tuesday, while Seoul National University Hospital and the Catholic Medical Center informed the doctors that their resignations would be processed automatically as of Monday 15th if they did not respond. The government will authorize recruiting for the second half of the year, starting from July 22nd. On the cultural front, the Paris Opera Ballet, one of the most prestigious ballet companies in the world, is holding a gala performance here in Seoul from this weekend. Our culture correspondent Hong-yul offers us a sneak peek at the show.
With more than 3 centuries behind it, the Paris Opera Ballet is the world's oldest national ballet company. Its finest dancers have come to Korea for the company's second gala performance in the country. Leading the ensemble is Korean ballerina Park Se-eun, who in 2021 became the first Asian dancer to be promoted to étoile, the company's highest rank.
Seoul Arts Center is my favorite stage in Korea. I had the chance to perform several times here about 13 years ago, and I still remember the excitement and thrill I felt on that stage. I'm really looking forward to experiencing those emotions again.
This gala is all the more special to Park as it's her first performance in her home country since becoming a mother. Beyond performing, Park took on the role of producer, carefully selecting the repertoires and dancers for the show.
Preparation was tough since all of our dancers had a busy season with the company. I had to work on the gala bit by bit in my spare time, but I wanted to create the best program possible. Looking back, it's all been worth it.
A total of 10 dancers, including Park, will perform 18 pieces. Among them are lesser-seen works in Korea, such as The Vertiginous Thrill of Exactitude by William Forsyth and Jose Martinez's Mi Favorita.
Typical gala performances focus on technical feats like multiple twirls or high jumps to excite the audience, but I didn't want that. I hope the audience can feel a swirl of emotions that words or letters can't express after watching our program.
Park's visit to Korea this time isn't just about dazzling on stage. It's also about inspiring the next generation of dancers. She, along with fellow étoile Paul Mark, will hold a one-day class for young ballet dancers next Monday.
We want to share how we learn and dance at French ballet schools and within our company. I hope this gives them a chance to experience the French ballet style.
Many young dancers aspire to join our company and often ask how to get in. Our company has changed a lot, even in the 13 years I've been there, so I can't definitively say what Paris Opera Ballet looks for now. But I want to share my experience so they can find their answers.
The Ballet Gala of Étoile in Paris will take to the stage 4 times, starting this Saturday at the Seoul Art Center's Opera Theater. 송유진, Arirang News.
Breaking is making its Olympic debut in Paris this summer, and the b-boy representing South Korea is planning to prove age is just a number. Our Choi Soo-young met up with him.
Kim Hong-yul, as known as Hong-tan, is a 39-year-old South Korean breakdancer. He will compete in breaking, which became an official sport for the first time at this year's Paris Olympics. He has won the Red Bull BC1 World Final, regarded as a World Championship level competition, 3 times. Last year, at the Asian Games in Hangzhou, he won Korea's first ever silver medal as a world-class b-boy. This year, he made history here by being the only Korean athlete in breaking to qualify for the Paris Olympics.
I want to show the world what the breaking is, especially to those who might not be familiar with this dance, and I hope many people will enjoy it and even try it out themselves. I plan to work hard with that goal in mind. Personally, I feel great about achieving my goal and making it this far.
His signature move is the freeze, a position held without movement for almost 10 seconds. He is also known for his power moves, connecting high-difficulty movements continuously. At this Olympics, he said his strongest competitors were Phil Kim, known as Phil Wizard from Canada, Shigeyuki Nakarai, known as Shigekicks from Japan, and Victor Montalvo, known as Victor from the US. Despite his countless breaking battle experiences, Hong-tan said he feels both excited and nervous about competing in the Olympic stage.
This is Hong-tan, representing Korea in the Paris Olympics. I ask for your support and I'll do my best to achieve great results that meet your expectations. Thank you so much.
Wearing the team uniform adorned with the Korean national flag, the taegukgi, Hong-tan already feels a sense of pride and determination as a national representative. His journey to make history is about to begin. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
With very strong rain, the first heavy rain emergency texts of the year were sent in Seoul this morning and Gyeonggi-do province. From tonight to tomorrow morning, more extreme rain is expected in the Seoul metropolitan area and the Chungcheong-do provinces. Until Friday, more than 200 millimeters of heavy rain is expected in the Seoul metropolitan area and the Chungcheong-do provinces. Gangwon-do province will also receive as much as 180 millimeters of heavy rain. Tomorrow, most areas will start the morning at least 23 degrees Celsius. It will move up to 27 in Seoul and Jeju, Daejeon and Busan 28 degrees. Please take extra precautions as there are landslide crisis warnings in place in most parts of the country. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.